Well, last week my wife was up in the city that happens to have a Harbor Freight store, and I sent her a text and told her, hey, while you're over at Harbor Freight, pick up one of those ultrasonic cleaners, and I gave her the part number and everything. And of course, I pulled a trick on her like she pulls on me all the time. She had no intention of going to Harbor Freight and told me so when she come back. And I said, yeah, I know, but it seems like it worked for you just like it works for me. But anyhow, this is actually a pretty nice unit. I've tried it with several different chemicals. One thing that I will say is isopropyl alcohol is not very good to use in this, mainly because it eats the paint off this cover. I don't know if you can see that or not, but this gray paint that's on here looks like is actually paint, not just a color molded into the plastic. And it ate all along the ridge of that. It ate all the paint right off of it, and you can see, I don't know if you can see on here, but it's kind of cloudy here now. That was all from the isopropyl alcohol when I had it in there. But I've been using, since I experimented with the isopropyl alcohol, I've been using water and various percentages of simple green, and it seems to work quite well for a lot of different parts. Started out with a little bit too strong of a concentration of simple green, and found that it wanted to etch like coatings and stuff off. Like, for example, this particular spark plug here, I don't know if you can see it or not, it started to kind of take that plating off of there, but I cleaned it up really well. That thing was pretty well filed, and I just wanted to kind of show an example of how good this thing really is working. I'll stand behind here so I can see the viewfinder, but that dirty plug is exactly what the clean plug looked like when I threw that thing in there. I was amazed. I've thrown spark plugs like that out in the past, thinking there wasn't anything I could do with them, and now that I've got this ultrasonic cleaner, I'm going to start cleaning them up. These spark plugs here, basically what I usually do is I'll use them for a few weekends of racing, and then after that they're relegated to startup duties, and that's what these plugs were. That's why they're so badly fouled. It isn't because of the engine being super rich or the plugs being way too cold. It's just the fact that after a few weekends of racing, I pull those plugs out, and then say if for some reason I'm starting the car up and moving around in the garage or loading up on the car trailer or whatever, then these are the plugs that I put in it. And then once I get to the strip, then I'll make one warm-up run with those plugs, pull them out, and then put the regular newer plugs in. But now I'm seeing how well this cleans up, I may have to alter that that policy. Spark plugs are getting pretty expensive. Get any good racing plugs like these, or say like the Autolites, which I usually use for the most part, the Autolite plugs. These aren't this is actually a plug I think I was using either in the, I think that was in the turbo motor we had, the 4-cylinder turbo motor. But I found that the Autolite AR series plug seems to work the best for me, most of what I run. I bought those Excels because they were between a couple heat ranges for what the Autolites were to experiment with, and they actually work pretty good. A lot of people want to denigrate Excel spark plugs, and I'd never used them before, but there was certainly nothing wrong with them. The car ran just as good as it did with the Autolites. But anyway, I just thought I'd demonstrate how well this thing cleans, and it seemed to have a pretty good vibrating action to it. I don't know if you can hear that. I'll get this thing off of here, see if we can look inside there. Get moving around pretty good in there. So now that I bought this smaller one, I've got my eyes on a bigger one that I could probably put carburetors in. I used these years and years ago, a long time, whenever I was just out of school. I worked for a military subcontractor, and we used these for, at that time, for cleaning certain circuit boards, depending upon which mil spec you were building some of that equipment to. Some mil specs would allow the use of an ultrasonic cleaner, and some would not. And the certain mil specs we were building some of the harness and circuit board assemblies to, we would use an ultrasonic cleaner on. Then other ones we had to use just the old-fashioned acid brush and a rinse. Usually for the supercritical applications, we weren't allowed to use the ultrasonic cleaner. So I definitely knew how good these things were, but I just had never purchased one because they were so expensive back then. I thought they still were. This particular unit here, normal price is $99.99. The sale flyer we got was $79.99, and then she had a 20% off coupon. That dropped it down to whatever, $60-some. So it was certainly worth it for that. And ever since I got it, it was last weekend I got it, and it's kind of like a kid with a new toy. I'm throwing everything I think of in there, and I've been using it pretty much continuously out here every day I'm out in the garage, and so far it hasn't failed. Hopefully it'll continue that way. But yeah, if you're looking at that thing wondering if it is any good, at least the particular unit I have is good. Of course they are Chinese-made junk, I guess you could call it, so I'm sure the quality on each one is quite variable, but luckily the quality on the one that I purchased, or my wife purchased for me, so far has been good quality, so I'm going to continue to use it. Well, I've now had that ultrasonic cleaner for a little over a week, about a week and a half, and I decided to start cleaning some other spark plugs that I have. These particular plugs here, NGK 8 heat range, are actually the last plugs that I had in this engine the last time that I ran it. And I normally use AR series plugs, but I decided to try NGKs, and they work just as good as any other. I mean, there's really no magic about a spark plug. Anybody that tells you need 10 electrodes or whatever else on the stinking thing, they're just trying to sell you snake oil. Basically, you need it to be the right heat range and good plug gap, good gap for whatever your application may be. And I usually use an extended tip on anything that I can, unless it's maybe like a turbo situation, or if I have a really high dome on the piston and it might hit it. But cleaned them up really nice too. These are actually in pretty good shape anyway. These are the plugs I was actually racing the last time with, and basically the only thing that I had as far as any color on these plugs, short of just the very, very light gray around here and the blue ring on the ground strap right there at the bend, was right at the very bottom. There was just a very light gray residue, which basically what that all means is the heat range was good, and also the air fuel mixture was pretty decent too. So it cleaned these up really nicely, and unless somebody can give me a reason why, I see no problem with using these spark plugs again. At the very least, maybe for the first day, get things straightened up, tuned in or whatever. They could be the sacrificial plugs, I'm a little bit too rich or lean or whatever. But this thing has ended up being pretty good investment, like I said earlier. That's somebody beating on my door. Well, that was interesting. It wasn't somebody beating on my door. There was a rabbit running up against my garage door a couple times because it was so, you could hear my dog barking in the background there. It had so wound up. It ran into my garage door a couple times. I was standing there kind of stunned. But, but anyways, I took the Simple Green out, and now I've got the Simple Green HD Purple Power. I'm going to try that. And then I've also got some ZEP degreaser I'm going to try. I need to find something for pistons. If anybody knows what would be a good, easy to get household cleaner for pistons in an ultrasonic, I'd like to find out what that is. Most of this stuff they tell you not to use on aluminum. It's too alkaline, and you get that white corrosion residue on the aluminum, and if you leave it in there too long, it'll just practically dissolve it. But anyways, like I said in the earlier part of this video, this has been one heck of a good investment, and I might buy a couple more of these so I can just have like 3 or 4 different ones of them going all at the same time.